enemies and allies, clear lines of right and wrong, friend and foe. But once, just once, something happened that shattered all the rules. In the final chaotic days of World War II, on a quiet mountaintop in Austria, American soldiers and German soldiers fought side by side against the SS. This is the unbelievable true story of Castle Itter, known as the strangest battle of the entire war. The story begins in early May 1945. Hitler is gone, Germany is collapsing, but not everyone is ready to surrender. Parts of the SS, the fanatical core of the Nazi regime, are still roaming the mountains, still killing, still determined to fight to the last breath. Up in the Austrian Alps sits Castle Itter, a lonely fortress gripping the side of a cliff. Inside it, the Nazis kept very special prisoners, former French prime ministers, generals, writers, intellectuals, even a famous tennis champion. They were valuable hostages, and now with the war ending, they were terrified the SS would execute them before liberation. Their fear becomes very real when one morning the guards simply leave. They abandon the castle entirely. No explanation, no orders, just gone. The prisoners are suddenly free but stranded in the mountains surrounded by SS units. To stay where they are is almost certain death. With no one else to turn to, the prisoners decide on something daring and desperate. They send out a single man, a Yugoslav handyman named Zvonimir Chuchkovic. Alone, unarmed, he hops on a bicycle and rides straight into unknown territory, searching for help. Hours pass as he pedals through villages scarred by war, past burned homes, across roads patrolled by SS troops. But somehow, by sheer determination, he reaches an American tank unit. Exhausted, he explains the situation. VIP prisoners, alone in a castle, about to be slaughtered by SS forces. Lieutenant Jack Lee, a tough, cigar-loving American known for taking risks, doesn't hesitate. He turns to his men and says, "Let's go." With a small squad of American soldiers and a single Sherman tank nicknamed Besotten Jenny, Lee heads toward the castle. But before they arrive, something extraordinary happens. They encounter a group of German Wehrmacht soldiers led by Major Josef Gangl. Instead of attacking the Americans, Gangl raises a white flag. He tells Lee he wants to help protect the civilians from the SS. He has secretly been resisting Nazi commands, and now he is ready to fight openly. In one of the strangest moments of the entire war, American forces and German forces shake hands and decide to fight on the same side. If you're enjoying this unbelievable true story, hit the like button. It helps this kind of forgotten history reach more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that sound impossible, but are completely real. The combined force, Americans, anti-Nazi Germans, and even some brave citizens, reach Castle Itter. The French prisoners greet them with relief, but there's no time for celebration. At dawn the next morning, the SS attack. It begins with shouting in the woods, then gunfire, then the rumble of machine guns echoing off the stone walls. Hundreds of SS soldiers surround the castle. Inside are barely a few dozen defenders, Americans, Germans, and the French prisoners themselves, many of them elderly statesmen who haven't touched a weapon in years. The Sherman tank Besotten Jenny fires round after round until it is destroyed under heavy SS fire. Bullets smash into the walls. Riflemen crouch behind windowsills, firing at advancing soldiers. The defenders are heavily outnumbered and rapidly running out of ammunition. Inside the castle, the French VIP prisoners refuse to hide. Jean Borotra, the tennis champion, runs messages between positions. Former prime ministers and generals stand at the battlements with rifles. Everyone fights everyone. Then tragedy strikes. Major Gangl, the German officer who chose to defend the prisoners rather than obey the Nazis, sees a French leader exposed to sniper fire. Without hesitation, he moves to pull the man to safety. A sniper's bullet hits him before he reaches cover. Major Gangl falls, sacrificing his life in the oddest alliance of the war. Honored both by Germany and France after the war for his bravery. Back at the castle, the defenders are nearly spent. The SS close in, ammunition dwindles. Defeat seems moments away, and then salvation. American reinforcements, alerted by frantic calls earlier that morning, roar up the mountain road. Tired, angry, and determined, they smash into the SS forces from behind. The attackers scatter, some surrender, some flee into the woods. The siege is over. Castle Itter is saved. The strangest battle of World War II ends not with enemies, but with unexpected allies. Americans, Germans, French prisoners, civilians, all standing together on the castle walls as the smoke clears. A moment in history where humanity briefly triumphed over ideology. If you enjoyed this story and want more incredible true events brought to life, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who loves history. And let me know, which forgotten story should I tell next? The beaches were never meant to be a battlefield. They were meant for families, summer holidays, peace. But in 1940, the sands of Dunkirk became a desperate gateway to survival. The last hope for an entire army trapped between the sea and the unstoppable force of the Nazi war machine. This is the astonishing true story of the evacuation of over 338,000 Allied soldiers. A story of chaos, courage, and a miracle born from ordinary people who refused to let hope die. Let's go back to where it all began. Germany's invasion of France was fast. Too fast. While the Allies expected a long struggle, the German blitzkrieg swept across Europe with a speed that shocked the world. Town after town fell. Defensive lines crumbled. The Allied armies, British, French, Belgian, found themselves pushed back step by step until there was nowhere else to go. Cornered, cut off, outmatched. By late May, nearly 400,000 soldiers were squeezed into a shrinking pocket around the French port of Dunkirk. Behind them, Nazi forces closed in. In front of them, the cold expanse of the English Channel. They were out of ammunition, out of options, and running out of time. But Britain refused to abandon them. Operation Dynamo, an evacuation plan rushed into existence, was launched from deep below Dover Castle. Naval officers huddled in war rooms, charting the coastline, calculating tides, desperately searching for a way to bring their soldiers home. But there was a problem. The port of Dunkirk was destroyed. The waters were too shallow for big warships to approach the beaches, and the Luftwaffe swarmed the skies, bombing relentlessly. It seemed impossible. Yet, in the middle of the destruction, a quiet bravery began to rise. As dawn broke, soldiers lined the beaches in long, endless queues. They were exhausted, many shaken from days of fighting. The sea breeze carried the smell of smoke. Burned-out vehicles dotted the sand. Aircraft roared above. Every moment could be their last. But then, out on the horizon, a shape appeared. A ship and another. And another. Destroyers, minesweepers, tugs, anything that could float, began creeping toward the shore. Men cheered. Some cried. Some simply stared in disbelief. Help had actually come, but the larger ships still couldn't reach the beaches. So soldiers waded into the freezing water, chest deep, holding rifles high, while waiting for boats to pull them aboard. Lines stretched hundreds of yards into the sea, and while chaos reigned around them, the British and French held the perimeter, fighting to buy precious minutes for the evacuation. That's when something extraordinary happened, something nobody predicted. The call went out across Britain. Boats needed. Any boats, and the people responded. If this story is gripping you the way it has gripped generations, hit the like button. It helps more people discover these powerful moments in history. And if you love true historical stories, make sure to subscribe for more. Now, let's return to Dunkirk. Fishermen, lifeboat crews, sailors, even families with simple pleasure boats. They sailed willingly into a war zone. These were not soldiers, not trained rescuers. Just ordinary men and women with extraordinary courage. Hundreds of little ships crossed the channel, bouncing over waves, dodging mines, weaving through burning wreckage. Some carried a dozen soldiers at a time. Others could carry only a few, but each one mattered. A tiny fishing vessel might pull 30 men from the sea. A simple family boat might save soldiers stranded in the surf. Every crossing meant more lives brought home. The beaches became scenes of overwhelming emotion. Soldiers shouted in relief when they saw the small boats coming in. They helped each other aboard. Some fell to their knees overcome, but the danger never stopped. German bombers swooped overhead. Stuka screamed as they dived. Explosions churned sand and sea, yet the evacuation continued, day and night. Despite fires, despite air attacks, despite tidal challenges, the boats just kept coming. By the time Operation Dynamo ended, over 338,000 men had been rescued. No one had believed such a number was even possible. And in Britain, when Prime Minister Winston Churchill addressed the nation, he spoke words that would echo through history. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall never surrender. The miracle of Dunkirk wasn't about victory. It was about survival, about unity, about thousands of ordinary people rising to an impossible challenge. It was a moment when a nation refused to let their soldiers die alone. A moment when courage crossed the sea. A moment when hope, fragile, flickering, unbelievable, refused to be extinguished. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe for more epic true history stories just like this one. Drop a comment and tell me, should I cover another Y2 evacuation or another incredible moment of courage? And thank you for watching. History lives on because we remember it together. Imagine flying through the freezing darkness of the Eastern Front, in a plane made of wood and canvas, with no parachute, no radar, no armor, and no guns. Imagine drifting silently over enemy camps, cutting your engine so you become nothing more than a shadow in the night, and then releasing your bombs before the Germans even realize what's happening. This wasn't a movie, this was real. And the world came to know these young women as the Night Witches, the Soviet Union's all-female bombing regiment whose courage struck fear deep into Nazi lines. Before we dive into their unbelievable story, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps this channel bring more powerful and lesser-known stories from history to life. When the German invasion of the Soviet Union began in 1941, the situation was desperate. The Red Army was struggling, cities were falling, and casualties were rising every day. But in the middle of this chaos, a Soviet hero named Marina Raskova, often called the Soviet Amelia Earhart, pushed for something no military had ever done before. She convinced Stalin to allow an all-female combat aviation unit, not for support roles, not for training, for actual combat. And so in 1942, 3 all-female air regiments were formed. The most famous of them all was the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. These women ranged from teenagers to university students. Many had never fired a weapon, flown at night, or seen the front lines. But they volunteered because their country was on the brink of collapse, and they refused to stand by and watch it fall. The planes made of wood and canvas. Now you might imagine fighter jets or heavy bombers, but what they got was the opposite. The Night Witches flew Polikarpov Po-2 biplanes, training aircraft that looked more like crop dusters. They were built of plywood and canvas, open cockpit, freezing cold, and slower than a modern car. German pilots joked that shooting one down was like shooting down a barn. But these little wooden planes had a hidden advantage. They were almost invisible on radar, and when the pilots cut their engines, they glided silently across the night sky. The only sound the Germans heard was a faint whooshing, like a broomstick sweeping overhead. Terrified soldiers began whispering that these women flew like witches in the night. The name stuck. They became Die Nachthexen, the Night Witches. First combat missions. The missions were brutal. The Night Witches flew in total darkness with no instruments, no radios, no navigation devices. If they got lost, they stayed lost. They flew low to the ground, making them easy targets. They wore men's uniforms, often oversized, because the military didn't issue female ones. And they had to stuff the boots with newspaper to keep them from falling off. Most nights, each pilot flew 10 to 15 missions, returning to base only long enough to grab more bombs before going back out again. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Night Witches, hit the like button and drop a comment telling me which W2 story I should cover next. It helps more people discover these incredible women, their tactics and bravery. The Night Witches used tactics that were both bold and terrifying. They often flew in groups of 3. The first 2 planes would dive toward German positions, drawing heavy gunfire. While the enemy focused on them, the 3rd plane slipped in silently, engine off, and dropped its bombs with deadly accuracy. Then they'd switch roles and do it again. One of the most remarkable facts about them? They flew without parachutes because the planes were too small and too heavy once loaded with bombs. Many said, if our plane is hit, a parachute won't save us anyway. Their bravery was legendary. 2 of the most famous members were Nadezhda Popova and Yevdokia Bershanskaya. Popova once flew 18 missions in a single night. Her plane returned riddled with bullets, struts shattered, fabric torn, instruments destroyed. But she survived and went right back into the air the next night. The Germans' fear and frustration. The Night Witches frustrated the German army so much that they began spreading rumors. They believed the women used special injections for night vision. They claimed the Soviets trained them from childhood to be advanced pilots. They insisted the night witches weren't human. None of it was true. These were just ordinary young women doing something extraordinary. Germany even offered iron crosses to any pilot who could shoot one down. But the Po-2 was so slow and nimble that many fast German fighters struggled to hit them. The night witches turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. By the end of the war, the night witches had flown over 30,000 missions and dropped more than 23,000 tons of bombs. They were so effective that 23 of them were awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union, the country's highest military honor. But despite their achievements, they were not celebrated the way male pilots were. They never received proper uniforms. They never flew state-of-the-art aircraft. And when the war ended, their regiment was disbanded and nearly forgotten. Yet today, their legacy continues to inspire people.